It was a crisp autumn morning when the nightmare began, one that would haunt the small farming community for years to come. The sun had barely risen over the rolling hills of Willow Creek Farm, casting golden light across fields of corn and soybeans. But as the day wore on, an eerie stillness settled over the land, a quiet so heavy it felt like the earth itself was holding its breath. Somewhere between breakfast and sunset, two sisters, Emily, 15, and Lily, 12, vanished without a trace. No screams, no signs of struggle, just empty chairs at the kitchen table and unanswered questions lingering in the air. The family farm had always been their sanctuary, a place where laughter echoed through the barn and fireflies lit up summer nights. For generations, the Crawfords had worked this soil, raising crops and children alike with equal care. But now, it stood frozen in time, a ghostly reminder of what once was. Their father, John Crawford, spent every waking moment searching for his daughters, combing through woods, abandoned sheds, and even the dusty corners of neighbors' properties. His wife, Sarah, clung to hope by organizing search parties and plastering posters around town, her voice trembling but determined whenever she spoke about bringing Emily and Lily home. Yet, despite all efforts, no answers came. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and eventually the world seemed to move on. Except for the Crawfords. They COULDN, single quotes T.3 long years passed, each day stretching longer than the last. The creek near the farm became a haunting landmark, its gentle babbling a cruel contrast to the grief that weighed down the family. It wasn't just a body of water anymore. It was a symbol of everything they had lost. Locals whispered among themselves, speculating about what could have happened. Some believed the girls ran away, unable to cope with the pressures of growing up in such a tight-knit community. Others leaned toward darker theories, strangers passing through, old feuds resurfacing, or something far more sinister lurking beneath the surface. Whatever the truth was, it remained buried deep, hidden from prying eyes and desperate hearts. Then, one chilly October afternoon, something changed. A local farmer named Tom Hargrove decided to clean out some junk from his property. He brought along a powerful magnet attached to a rope, planning to drag it through the shallow waters of the nearby creek to retrieve any metal scraps that might be lying there. As he pulled the magnet back onto the bank, something unusual caught his attention, something heavy. At first glance, it looked like rusted debris, tangled in weeds and mud. But as Tom wiped away the grime, his hands froze mid-motion. Uncovered sent shivers down his spine, and not because of the cold water soaking his boots. Word spread quickly in a town this size. Within hours, Sheriff Daniels arrived at the scene, his face etched with both curiosity and dread. He'd been the one to lead the initial investigation 3 years ago. And though he'd never admit it aloud, the case had eaten away at him ever since. Now, standing knee-deep in the creek, he stared at the object Tom had found, his mind racing with possibilities. Was this finally the break they'd been waiting for? Or was it another dead end and a mystery that refused to give up its secrets? Either way, the discovery reignited old wounds, forcing the community to confront the tragedy they'd tried so hard to forget. Back at the Crawford house, life had taken on a fragile rhythm. John and Sarah rarely spoke about Emily and Lily these days. Not because they didn't want to, but because the pain was too raw. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind against the windows, carried the weight of memories they couldn't escape. Their son, Jake, now 19, had grown quieter over the years, retreating into himself as if trying to shield his parents from further heartache. He often wandered the edges of the property alone, staring off into the distance as if willing the sisters to appear. When news of the creek discovery reached them, it shattered the fragile peace they'd managed to build. Hope and fear collided in their chests, leaving them breathless and unsure of what to believe. As investigators examined the item pulled from the creek, details began to emerge. It was small but significant, a piece of jewelry, tarnished by time and water, yet unmistakably personal. Engraved on the back were initials, E.C. Emily's initials. The confirmation hit the family like a punch to the gut. For 3 years, they'd clung to the possibility that their daughters were alive somewhere, starting new lives far away from the farm. This find forced them to face a grim reality. Whatever happened to Emily and Lily, it likely ended here, in the shadow of the very place they called home. But the story doesn't stop there. The discovery raised more questions than it answered. How did the necklace end up in the creek? Had someone deliberately hidden it there, or had it washed downstream during a storm? And most importantly, where were the girls? The sheriff's department launched a renewed effort to solve the case, dredging the creek and scouring the surrounding area for any additional clues. Meanwhile, rumors swirled faster than ever before. Some claimed the farm itself held secrets that went back decades, long before the Crawfords owned the land. Others pointed fingers at outsiders who had come and gone over the years, leaving behind only whispers and unease. For the Crawfords, the days that followed were a blur of emotions. Relief that they might finally uncover the truth battled with terror over what that truth might reveal. Friends and neighbors rallied around them once again, offering support in ways big and small. Yet, amidst the chaos, one thing became clear. The bond between the family had grown stronger in the face of unimaginable loss. They weren't just searching for answers, they were fighting for closure, for justice, for the chance to lay their daughters to rest and begin healing. And then, just as hope flickered back to life, another twist emerged. Late one evening, while reviewing old case files, Detective Harper stumbled upon something peculiar. A witness statement from the time of the disappearance, tucked away in the margins of a report, mentioned seeing unfamiliar tire tracks near the edge of the property. Back then, it hadn't seemed important enough to pursue. Now, with fresh eyes and renewed urgency, the detail took on new significance. Could those tracks belong to someone involved in the girl's disappearance? If so, who were they, and why had no one connected the dots until now? As the investigation deepened, the tension in Willow Creek grew palpable. Everyone wanted answers, but not everyone wanted the same answers. Secrets simmered beneath the surface, threatening to boil over at any moment. The creek, once a peaceful part of the landscape, now loomed large in everyone's minds, a silent witness to events no one fully understood. And while the Crawfords waited anxiously for the next breakthrough, they couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. What lies ahead is uncertain, but one thing is clear: the story of Emily and Lily Crawford is far from over. Pieces of the puzzle are beginning to fall into place, but the picture they form remains incomplete. Will the truth bring solace or devastation? Is the creek hiding more than just a necklace? And will the Crawfords ever find the peace they so desperately seek? The answers may lie just beyond the horizon, but getting there won't be easy. Stay tuned, because the journey is only beginning. The Crawford family had always been the heart of Willow Creek. Their farm wasn't just a business. It was a legacy, passed down through generations like an heirloom meant to be cherished and protected. John Crawford grew up learning everything. He knew from his father how to plant seeds in straight rows, how to mend fences when storms tore them apart, and how to carry burdens without letting them crush you. But nothing could have prepared him for this. Nothing could prepare anyone for losing 2 daughters in the blink of an eye. As weeks turned into months after Emily and Lily vanished, the once vibrant household became a shadow of its former self. The laughter that used to fill the kitchen faded, replaced by heavy silences and unanswered prayers. Sarah Crawford tried her best to hold things together, but grief has a way of unraveling even the strongest people. She spent countless nights sitting at the dining table, staring at photos of her girls taped to the wall, a makeshift shrine she couldn't bear to take down. Her hands would tremble as she traced their faces with trembling fingers, whispering promises she wasn't sure she could keep. "We'll find you. We won't stop looking." Jake, their son, watched all of this unfold with a mix of anger and helplessness. At 16, when his sisters disappeared, he'd felt powerless to protect them. Now, at 19, he carried that guilt like a weight strapped to his back, one he couldn't shake, no matter how hard he tried. Meanwhile, the discovery of the necklace sent shockwaves through the community. People who hadn't spoken about the case in years suddenly found themselves revisiting old memories, piecing together fragments they'd long forgotten, or perhaps intentionally ignored. Mrs. Peterson, who lived 2 miles down the road, recalled seeing a strange car parked near the edge of the property on the day the girls went missing. She remembered thinking it odd because no one ever visited the Crawfords unannounced. But life moves quickly in small towns, and soon enough, she dismissed it as nothing more than curiosity or coincidence. Now, though the memory clawed at her conscience, refusing to let go, Detective Harper, tasked with reopening the investigation, worked tirelessly to connect the dots. He pored over every scrap of evidence, every interview transcript, searching for anything that might explain what happened to Emily and Lily. His focus shifted heavily toward the tire tracks mentioned in the overlooked witness statement. With modern technology and fresh resources, he hoped to identify the vehicle they belonged to. If the tracks led somewhere meaningful, it could change everything. Yet, every step forward seemed to reveal another obstacle blocking the path to clarity. Someone out there didn't want these secrets unearthed, and Harper couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. As tensions mounted, so did suspicions within the town. Neighbors began eyeing each other differently, wondering if someone among them harbored dark truths. Old grudges resurfaced, fueled by whispers and insinuations. Tom Hargrove, the farmer who found the necklace, found himself under scrutiny despite having no connection to the Crawfords beyond living nearby. Some accused him of knowing more than he let on, while others speculated that the jewelry might not even belong to Emily. These doubts gnawed at Tom, forcing him to second-guess his own actions. Had he done enough during those initial frantic days of searching? Could he have missed something crucial? Back at the farm, John and Sarah wrestled with conflicting emotions. On one hand, the discovery gave them hope that answers were finally within reach. On the other, it forced them to confront the possibility that their worst fears were true. Were they ready to face whatever lay ahead? Sarah often retreated to the creek late at night, sitting quietly beside the water as if waiting for it to speak. She imagined her daughter's voices, carried on the breeze, calling out to her from some distant place. Sometimes, she swore she could hear them laughing, faint but unmistakable. Other times, the silence was deafening. Jake, meanwhile, took matters into his own hands. Unable to sit idly by while detectives sifted through paperwork, he started conducting his own search. Armed with a flashlight and determination, he scoured the woods surrounding the farm, retracing routes he and his sisters used to explore as kids. He climbed trees they once played in, checked hollow logs where they'd hidden treasures, and called out their names until his voice went hoarse. Each empty response felt like a punch to the gut, but giving up wasn't an option. Not for him, not now. Amidst all this turmoil, a subplot emerged involving the land itself. Rumors circulated about the history of Willow Creek Farm, stories whispered around campfires and shared in hushed tones at church gatherings. Decades ago, before the Crawfords owned the property, it had allegedly been the site of a tragic accident. A young woman drowned in the creek under mysterious circumstances. Locals claimed her spirit lingered, haunting the area and influencing events in ways no one fully understood. While most dismissed these tales as superstition, others believed they held kernels of truth. Could the farm's past somehow be tied to the present tragedy? Or was it merely a distraction, diverting attention from the real culprit? The climax approached rapidly, driven by mounting pressure and dwindling patience. Detective Harper received promising leads regarding the tire tracks, narrowing down potential vehicles registered in the area at the time of the disappearance. Meanwhile, Jake stumbled upon something unexpected during one of his solo searches: a tattered piece of fabric, caught on a thorny bush deep in the woods. It matched the description of a shirt Emily wore the day she vanished. This new clue reignited urgency, pulling everyone closer to the edge of revelation. Yet, as pieces of the puzzle came together, so did resistance. Anonymous threats appeared, slipped under doors, cryptic messages left on voicemails, warning the Crawfords to stop digging. Fear crept into their lives once again, threatening to undo the fragile progress they'd made. Who was behind these warnings? And why did they care so much about keeping the truth buried? With each passing moment, the tension reached unbearable levels. The creek, the farm, the woods, they all seemed alive with secrets, watching and waiting. Everyone involved knew that resolution was near, but whether it would bring peace or devastation remained uncertain. The Crawfords clung to hope, even as shadows loomed larger than ever before. What awaited them on the other side of this nightmare was impossible to predict, but one thing was clear. The truth, however painful, was close enough to touch. The final days of the investigation unfolded with an intensity that gripped the entire town. Detective Harper worked around the clock, piecing together the evidence like a jigsaw puzzle slowly taking shape. The tire tracks led him to a old truck registered to a man named Earl Grady, a drifter who had passed through Willow Creek 3 years ago and disappeared shortly after Emily and Lily went missing. Though Earl wasn't well known in town, Those who remembered him described him as quiet, reclusive, and always watching from the edges of things. His name sent a chill through Sarah Crawford when she heard Itchy vaguely recalled seeing him near their property once, lingering by the creek, though she hadn't thought much of it at the time. As detectives closed in on Earl's whereabouts, Jake made a discovery that changed everything. Deep in the woods where he'd found the scrap of fabric, he stumbled upon something far more chilling, a shallow grave hidden beneath layers of leaves and dirt. His flashlight beam caught glints of metal, a buckle, part of a shoe, and his heart sank as he realized what he was looking at. Trembling, he called the authorities, his voice cracking as he gave them the location. Within hours, forensic teams were combing the site, uncovering remains that matched descriptions of clothing Emily and Lily had been wearing the day they vanished. The news hit the Crawfords like a tidal wave. For 3 agonizing years, they'd clung to hope against all odds. Now faced with the devastating truth, they were forced to confront the reality they'd dreaded most. Yet, even amidst their grief, there was a strange sense of relief. They finally had answers. As painful as it was, knowing what happened allowed them to begin the long process of healing. The farm, once a place haunted by unanswered questions, now felt different. It still carried sorrow, but also closure. Meanwhile, the hunt for Earl Grady intensified. Tips poured in from neighboring towns, leading law enforcement to a rundown cabin tucked deep in the woods miles away. When they arrived, they found Earl inside, disheveled and visibly shaken. He denied any involvement at first, claiming he'd left Willow Creek long before the girls went missing. But when confronted with mounting evidence including soil samples from his boots matching the dirt near the grave, he broke down. Earl confessed to abducting Emily and Lily, driven by a twisted obsession with the farm's history and its haunted reputation. He claimed voices had told him to take them, insisting they were part of some larger plan beyond his understanding. Though his words sounded unhinged, they painted a horrifying picture of how easily lives could be destroyed by someone consumed by darkness. With Earl arrested and charged, the town breathed a collective sigh of relief, but the scars ran deep. Mrs. Peterson, who had seen the strange car years ago, tearfully apologized to the Crawfords for not speaking up sooner. Tom Hargrove, vindicated after weeks of suspicion, visited the family to offer his condolences and share stories about how much their daughters meant to everyone in Willow Creek. Even Jake, burdened for so long by guilt, began opening up about his feelings, finding solace in talking to others who understood his pain. In the months that followed, the Crawfords focused on honoring Emily and Lily's memory. They transformed part of the farm into a memorial garden, planting flowers and trees in their favorite spots. A plaque beside the creek bore their names, along with a simple message, * gone too soon, but never forgotten. Neighbors came together to help build the garden, turning tragedy into something beautiful. The act of creation, however small, helped heal wounds that had festered for years. As for the rumors about the farm being cursed or haunted, they faded over time. People began to see the land not as a place of fear, but as a symbol of resilience. The creek, once shrouded in mystery, became a reminder of life's fragility and its strength. Sarah often visited it alone, sitting quietly as sunlight danced on the water. She no longer imagined hearing her daughter's laughter. Instead, she let herself feel the peace of knowing they were free. The case left lasting lessons for the community. It reminded everyone how interconnected their lives truly were, and how silence could sometimes shield danger. It also showed the power of persistence, how refusing to give up, even in the face of overwhelming despair, could lead to justice. For the Crawfords, the journey had been unimaginably painful, but it taught them the importance of leaning on each other and the people around them. Love, they realized, wasn't diminished by loss, it grew stronger, carrying them through the darkest times. Years later, the story of Emily and Lily remained etched in the hearts of those who knew them. Their absence shaped the town in ways both visible and invisible, leaving behind a legacy of courage, unity, and hope. And while the creek continued to flow, carrying whispers of the past, it also carried the promise of renewal, a reminder that, even in the deepest shadows, light can find its way back.